I am the host, as always, Sean from Rochester. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. We have Kevin Broberg,
Hello.
quadruple crown champion, and we have Matt Hughes, who might get there this year.
I'll try.
Unlike other quadruple crown champions, I have exactly 4 crowns, and they're all different. It doesn't look ridiculous where I have like 6 of the same ones stacked up on top of each other.
So, tonight is the Gencon Survival Guide. We want to have everybody have a successful, fun Gen Con. I think this one's going to be the best ever for Jasco Games and UFS. I think the hype train's running at full speed with the recent announcement of Street Fighter as a license. And hopefully they don't give us so much hype we end up derailing.
But
That's
they could hype us so much that we derail and land on another set of rails.
hype train out of control.
That sounds like multi-track drifting. Multi-hype drifting? Whoa!
Oh! Alrighty, so the main theme, I think, for our survival guide, and the thing you're going to hear over and over and over again throughout the thing, is planning. Planning is key. Things in conventions very expensive. You got to plan your budget. You got to plan your time because you're going to be on tough time constraints throughout the weekend. You're going to have to plan to have good clothing, good shoes, to plan to get lots of water. Planning, planning, planning.
Proper preparation prevents poor performance,
That's right.
after all.
So, things we should be doing right now in the pre-con days coming up. You've got our badges. Make sure that they're all correct. Make sure you've bought all your tickets. As we know, Jasco Games has been limited on their space for the con this year, so we need to get as many people to register/pre-register as possible. Make sure that those tickets are correct. Check out the forums because there was a change to the team's pricing for this year, and you don't want to get caught off guard without a ticket. And just make sure that everything's ready to go. Make sure you're signed up for the events you want to go to. I know a lot of events are filled out by now. Definitely keep some generic tickets on you as well, because you never know what you might be able to jump into.
Lots of awesome video game tournaments on the side. They're just
Mhm.
running all day long. I might go play Smash if I crap out a turbo early in the day.
So, moving on to packing for the trip. Big thing you're going to want to make sure is you bring lots of clean clothes. I know for me personally, and I cannot stress enough, fresh socks every day. Now, a lot of our viewers, a lot of our people who play UFS, they're big guys like me. I'm a big guy. I weigh 300 pounds. Your feet are going to sweat a lot. It is always hot in Indianapolis, and you're going to be doing a lot of walking. So I recommend bringing extra socks, between the tournament and going to dinner to change out to keep your feet dry. Because if your feet get wet and you keep walking on them, you're going to have blisters, and it's going to ruin your con.
On the subject of feet and packing socks, don't try to cheat on socks by wearing sandals. This way lies endless pain and nightmares.
Didn't you
People
do
will
that
step
last
on your
year?
feet.
Didn't you do that one year?
I'm a miracle worker, okay? Don't be me. Don't try to be me, because you can't. Your feet aren't evasive enough.
Yeah. Make sure you also don't bring a pair of old crappy shoes on accident.
Yeah, bring comfortable shoes.
I had a pair last year that was my first time going to Gen Con, and there was just a tiny hole in the side, and just walking 20 minutes to Buka's with it just scraping into my foot, I couldn't walk back very easily.
Yeah, if you're going to wear new shoes at the con, you need to start wearing them now. You got to break them in so they're going to be comfortable. I recommend actually bringing 2 pairs of shoes. Pairs of shoes that are comfortable, because eventually the one comfortable pair is no longer going to be comfortable. And when it comes to socks, I buy new socks every year for Gen Con. I go over to my local Target, get a pack of my black Hanes cotton socks, because socks with holes in them cause blisters.
Like buying new sleeves for your deck.
Exactly.
For a year.
It's just good practice. You don't want your feet sticking together.
Continuing on the packing for clothes, this should go without saying. Wear fresh underpants every day, unless you don't wear underpants. Then I don't want to hear about it.
You probably should wear underpants. We don't want to get a whiff of that or anything.
Once again, I'm a big guy. If you don't wear fresh underpants, you're going to have an odor. And no one's going to want to sit next to you, and then everyone's going to think we're just like all the other nerds. So, clean clothes, socks, underpants, jeans, shirts, every day, comfortable, closed-toed shoes. You do not
Yeah.
want a 400-pound gamer stepping on your big toe with no shoes on. Other things you're going to
And
want to... Oh, go ahead.
pack an extra pair of things. So like you should wear, you know, if you're going to be in Indianapolis for 4 days, you should have 5 pairs of everything at least. You know, maybe more if you want to switch out of your socks, like you were saying, Sean. But at least have one extra pair in case of some traumatic event that you can't avoid.
Other things you're going to make sure you are in your bag before you get ready to go, your money. And make sure you budget this entire trip. Don't forget your decks. Cards are very hard to come by, especially in the tournament hall, because it's a lot of walking. No one wants to carry a bunch of cards they're not going to use. They get heavy. Everything gets heavy at Gen Con.
Yeah, if you like, unless you actually need to like you for some reason need to make a deal on the floor, it's a lot better to bring, you know, a deck box containing the decks that you're actually playing, that you're actually using at that moment, with no extra cards in them, no extra things to just leave lying around. Leave the rest of your collection in your hotel room and go back to hotel rooms to make deals and trades after hours. You don't need to bring that stuff to the con. It's a security risk. It might get stolen, and it's just more things to carry for you.
Don't forget your tickets. Gen Con is pretty strict about, you know, not giving you replacement tickets. If you lose them, you could just be out. I've heard sometimes they can be super cool, but the experience I have is they're very strict. And don't forget your toiletries. Bring your toothbrush, brush your teeth every day. Bring toothpaste, dental floss, deodorant. Bring deodorant. Wear that shit every day.
It's called Speed Stick. It's not expensive.
Even if you forget it, go buy some. You do not want to go around sweating all day.
Well, that's a big tip we have, isn't it? Is to go to a grocery store on your first day in Indianapolis, stock up on a big case of bottled water so you can carry those around with you, so you can have something to just have clean, tasty water to drink whenever you want to. Buy
a water bottle
in case you're short on space in your bag. You didn't want to pack it on the way down.
Get snacks. You know, nibble throughout the day. And we all know Jasco Games judges, aka me, we are very flaky when it comes to how breaks work. So bring a snack. You know, because you never know. Your last round before break could run over. You could end up having to go a far distance to find anything worth eating. If you got a snack on you, that'll keep you going throughout the day. Especially, you know, if you have dietary restrictions where, you know, you may need to have certain amounts of sugar or salt or whatever it is. Keep snacks with you. Keep yourself going.
Yeah, it's really important that you do have something to eat during the con, have something to drink during the con, because your body will start to shut down if you don't put anything into it. If you don't have anything to eat or drink, start getting headaches, you'll start getting tired, and you just don't need to deal with that. You can just make sure you have some food just stuffed in your bag. Make sure you have water on hand during the day, and just take care of your body.
Other things to remember while you're at the con: stick to your budget. I have a friend who did not stick to his budget very well, and for the last day of the travel back to New York, he had no money to buy food with. You do not want to go. You don't want to not eat. Choose a budget. Yeah. Stick to it. The vendor hall has more things for you to spend money on than you will earn in your entire lifetime of stuff that you're going to want to buy.
Yep.
Make sure you budget for food.
One tip I've seen as far as the vendor hall goes is to have your budget, and as soon as you reach that budget, you set aside, you know, $100 to spend at the vendor hall, and as soon as you hit that point, you immediately just march out and never come back in.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have that temptation for yourself, and then you have your food budget that's entirely separate.
What I've been doing is, especially with like all the anime stuff, I've been just looking online to see what's out there, see what I potentially want. Give my time to think about it, and be like, all right, I've thought about it enough. Now I don't want this. That's one less thing I'm going to spend money on. when I get there.
Make sure you budget your food budget very carefully. Indianapolis has a wide variety of food from very cheap to very expensive. So plan your food budget wisely. Places you can get cheap food. White Castle, Steak and Shakes prices are always very reasonable.
Yeah, they have $5 meals, right?
Mm-hmm.
$4, I thought.
You're going to find yourself spending more money if you head to the bar, if you head to the Ram, you head to Kilroy's. Booze is very expensive always. So if you plan to booze it up every night, have a little side thing if you really want to, because booze is expensive if you're on a budget. And the food goes, like I said, to very expensive. You can spend hundreds of dollars on a meal for just a couple of people if you want to.
You could spend hundreds of dollars on pretzels if you're buying them inside the con.
Yeah, avoid the con food if you can. It's substandard and it's very, very expensive.
Just go to the Auntie Anne's in the mall if you really need a pretzel.
And I know last year, a couple of the days, they had food trucks line up out front of the convention center. So you're able to get lots of good food selections. Food trucks typically are a little more expensive, but there's a lot of good food to eat.
The lines are pretty solid at those. I've seen the best advice I have is to just go to the mall during a break or whatever to get, because they have a very extensive food court. It's a little bit of a walk. It's a couple blocks, but they've got a Chick-fil-A that's got good fast service. They've got like 17 other restaurants in there. It's pretty much whatever you could want.
I mean, almost everything is within a couple blocks of the convention center, so you can walk to whatever you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Booze, like I said, booze is very expensive. If you like to drink alcohol, like Kevin and me and Ben Shoemaker
And everyone else on the planet.
Matt Hughes doesn't drink booze. Tim Keefe doesn't drink booze.
Unfortunately, Giggles drinks booze.
It's a good time.
Not when you're the babysitter.
Other expenses you'll need to think about that a lot of times you might not is if you're staying outside of the city, parking is very expensive. You're looking, if you want to be anywhere near the convention center, at $20 a day. And if you're there for 4 days, that's going to add up. That's another good chunk of your budget that you need to plan for. Things to do every day. Shower. Take a shower every day.
Don't
wear
fall
clean
asleep
clothes.
in the shower.
Wear deodorant. And the thing I really suggest every morning, if it's available and you can pallet it, most hotels have a free breakfast or free-ish breakfast. Take advantage of that. I know that the hotel that we're staying at, we're at the Homewood Suites. They have a bomb-ass waffle maker. And it's a pretty good free breakfast every day that you're there. So if you're on a budget and you don't want to spend money on food for breakfast, get up early enough to take advantage of that. One of our people in the chat says to bring a cooler and make your own lunches. Spent less than $20 for lunches last year. That ties right in good with visiting a grocery store, especially if you've got a fridge in your hotel room. You can do Gencon a lot cheaper if you just pack a ham sandwich every day and some water. And it's probably healthier than anything you're going to eat in the convention center as well.
Certainly not worse. unless you have like a cheese sauce, like a gallon of cheese sauce, and then you're gonna pour all on top of everything. That's like equally bad.
Let's see. Could not remember password says if you're a craft brew person, the Tow Yard Brewery is right off of Madison and has an excellent deli selection. Once again, you can spend as little or as much as you want when it comes to food at the convention.
By the way, if I remember from reading up top correctly, could not remember password is actually Nick Brown.
Nick Brown, hi
great.
Nick Brown.
Unless there's another Nick within the community that I'm not thinking of that knows Giggles.
Well, now I look like a silly person.
That's my
So,
plan.
our next section of things to remember for Gen Con is things you'll want to do always. Item 1, watch your stuff. Don't lose it. Don't let it get stolen.
Yeah.
Don't be
Theft's not really an issue in the UFS community, thank goodness.
outside of it.
But-
I can.
Outside of it, it's a huge problem. And I can tell you a close friend of mine a couple years ago had his deck stolen right in the middle of the UFS tournament in front of 100 people, and he lost several $100 worth of cards.
So did I. Because
Well, he borrowed
those
the
were my
cards,
cards.
and he only looked away for a couple minutes. So, you know,
Yeah,
loop
an eye on your stuff.
your backpack under your chair. Only take out the things that you actually need to play the round.
And just don't walk away from your deck box sitting on top of the table.
Ever. Don't do it ever. Because while it might not get stolen by a UFS player, I've watched Yu-Gi-Oh! If Weevil sees your deck sitting on the table, he's either going to steal it or put cards that'll make you lose into it. So just don't do it.
My suggestion, instead of having an actual book bag on your back, that's people who are really good at sleight of hand and are really crafty can just like open up the front pocket and take something out. I wear a messenger bag on the side. That's much harder for anyone to try to get into.
I know my backpack when I go to Gencon, I actually have a lock on it. So unless you're going to tear the canvas of the backpack, you're going to need the password for the combination lock. Because it's easy for someone, especially if you're walking in a crowd of people, someone just open up your bag and start collecting stuff. So lock it up, carry it in front of you, just don't lose it. Another thing to do always, don't creep on people.
Yeah,
respect some personal space.
Yeah, Sean.
Everybody's got a personal bubble, some bigger, some smaller, some not at all. Respect that. I've talked to some women especially who've gone to conventions over the years, and they think it's amazing to them how people keep running into their chests. Don't be a creeper. If you're going to take someone's picture, ask first. Don't be a creeper. Because kind of gives all of us a bad name. I can't stress, don't be a creeper. And last thing to do always, stay hydrated. Drink a lot of water. Kevin, tell us about things that happen to you when you don't drink water when you're playing UFS.
Well, if you start to get dehydrated, you can start getting really bad headaches. You can just start losing focus and getting fatigued more easily. And UFS is a hard game. You don't need to put yourself through that. On top of if you're getting a headache because there's a really complex board you're trying to work out, it might just be that it's actually that your body just doesn't have enough fluids in it to make everything work right, to filter out your blood or whatever.
Also,
well, I know when go ahead, Hughes.
If you're not hydrated enough, sometimes you forget your deck list to be written properly, right, Kevin?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, the rule of thumb on hydration I learned back when I was a Boy Scout is your urine should be clear or very lightly yellow. If you're going to the bathroom and it's coming out yellow or brown, you're not drinking enough water. And it is very, very, very easy to get dehydrated at the con. You go outside, you're walking, it's going to be 90 degrees at least. It almost is at every con. So it's going to be hot out. There's going to be lots of people in the convention center. It's going to be hot there. You're going to be sweating. So just stay hydrated. Things that don't hydrate you, soda. Soda does not rehydrate you.
It makes you thirstier, in fact.
Yep.
Some people say juice doesn't hydrate you.
Yeah, sugar tends to take a lot to require water to digest for your body to process it, and so drinking a sugary drink tends to actually raise the amount of water you need.
So things I recommend to drink, I just drink water. Things like get your sports drinks, your Gatorade, your Powerade has those electrolytes that supposedly make things better for you. So stay hydrated. You don't want your performance to drop, and if you're out drinking, you gotta drink water even more. I have played hungover UFS. It's miserable.
One big tip I have is to actually just go up to just stand in line for the concession stands, and if you have a water bottle, you can ask them to fill the water bottle. They usually just will, and they have a soda machine, and they have one of the buttons on it just pours out water fresh from the tap without putting any syrup in it. And they'll just do that for you for free if you just ask nicely. And that's the best way I found to get 32 ounces of water on demand for free.
Mm-hmm.
The water fountains usually have really bad water pressure, and they like it's not bad for you. It's actually there are water fountains that taste funny, but usually I found that the Gencon water fountains taste fine.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's what
however you want to
do.
get your water, make sure you get it. If you got a water bottle, I know we go back and forth. We either get like a 35 pack of the 20-ounce waters, or we just buy water by the gallon and keep it with us. Just keep drinking. That's an important one we just can't stress enough. Drink lots of water. That will make your experience so much better. And like our friend ATL Piglet says, piss clear before practice. That's what our coach also told us before football, because you run a lot during summer practice. Gotta get those heavy weights down. At the tournament, so let's face it, that's the reason a lot of us are going to Gen Con. So, big thing, arrive early for deck registration. Remember, you can pre-print your deck list right off of UFS Ultra at your hotel's business center. Most places it's free. If you don't want to go that route and you have to handwrite your deck list, please write clearly. Please write the correct names of the card. I don't want steady partner on the deck list. I don't want reformed science. Make sure your deck list is.
You should pick the egregious ones at least. Come on.
There was one thing on your deck list that I was going to post on the forums was 1X not legible.
I mean, how about up smash for Hien Shippu Ryujin Kyaku?
Yeah, no, and you can't use like Big Robert's kick, Little Robert's kick.
What?
Really?
Please write the correct names of the cards.
Am I the only one that actually writes them out properly in Rochester? Jeez.
Yes.
Please make sure you write clearly, take your time, and I highly recommend if you've got teammates there with you that you're comfortable knowing your deck list, have them read it over, have them check your deck list.
Yeah, double check. Show up in time so that you can write your deck list, double check it, and make sure it's right. Getting game losses is uncomfortable for everybody, and it sucks.
Especially.
I mean, I know with a lot of things that I do, there's a fallacy where even when I'm filling orders, when I'm looking at spreadsheets, your mind's going to show you what you want to see.
Absolutely.
And you're going to miss things. Just hand it to your friend, say, can you check this deck list?
One thing I do a lot is I actually total up the amounts of cards in each section. So I'll write down like on like after the last line of foundations, I'll just add up how many there are and write in like 35, and I did that for assets, attacks, actions, all the sections of the board, and then it's easier to check that against the deck you have laid out because you can just do like little running subtotals. Say like, okay, here's a row of 10 foundations, here's a row of 10 foundations, here's a row of 10 foundations, then here's 5 more foundations. That's 35. That's how many I should have. And if anything's missing there, you know. I mean, that's an alarm right there. Just like we heard from Sean. He has a little ding bell.
Sorry about that. So the other thing, I recommend you doing is keeping a list of your sideboard, like on a scrap of paper in your deck box, because I am awful about remembering what my sideboard is. And I know twice I've had to ask during the tournament to see my deck list to fix my sideboard. Because sideboards, I know for me, like the last thing I put together. So like the morning of the tournament, I might switch from running 2 Celestial Beings in my sideboard to 1.
Yeah, and if you watched our sideboarding episode, you know one of the strategies is to play more copies of the cards that are in your main deck.
And then that's going to get super confusing.
That is just supposed to be in my sideboard because there aren't cards that are actually missing.
Let's see here. When you make sure you do de-sideboard between every round. If you get randomly deck checked and you haven't de-sideboarded, you could face a game loss or some other infraction. I don't know how rough they're going to be this year yet. During the event, I recommend you stay for the entire event. No matter how poorly you're doing. We just finished a PTC in Rochester. And folks who stayed and played every round, the prizes got progressively better. So
in fact,
people who stayed
bottom table.
The last round, the last round they were actually playing for some tins, right?
Yeah, I know the 2 folks who were at the bottom of the brackets in the last round were playing for 1 of each 10, And in the last round of Swiss at the PTC, they were handing out white border Templars, which you'd feel pretty silly if you left the tournament hall because you weren't doing well and you missed a chance on getting a $20 card. So stay for the event, hang out with your people, have fun. Even if you're doing poorly, you're going to learn, ways to play your deck better, and you may even come up with ideas that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. Stay for the whole round. Jasco hands out prizes throughout the entire tournament. When you're playing your rounds, please get to your seats quickly. You can start shuffling. You can roll off. Don't start playing until you get the signal from the judges, because there's going to be announcements between rounds, I'm sure. There's always exciting shit going on, so don't fast play. Jeffrey Kahn, if you're out there, don't slow play. If you encounter a situation where you don't understand the rules, call a judge.
Judges are here to help you. They're not here to tell you that you're wrong or to say you're stupid. It's okay to call a judge. They're here to help.
Yeah,
and
never ask your opponent. They're there to win. I'm sorry, Kevin. I totally interrupted you.
No, I got everything I wanted to say out. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when in doubt, call a judge. If you don't know what the rules interaction is, call a judge over. They're there to help you. The judges are impartial, and they want everyone to have a good time. Don't ask another player. Don't ask your opponent. If you ask another player, you're distracting them from their game and could cause them to make a mistake. Call a judge. If you think infractions happened, call a judge. And, especially if you're playing against someone and they do commit an infraction and they just pick up their deck and say, you know what, I screwed up, I concede, still call a judge.
Yeah, judges, you should still let a judge know when anything like that happens. You won't always get a game loss for an infraction. The judges can take actions to correct the damaged game state without just saying, "Oh, you did this tiny little mistake, you lose now." You don't have to try to find something with your opponent to not feel like you're scumming them out. Judges are there to help. They're not there to scummy. It's not scummy to call a judge.
No.
Don't do that.
So make sure you play tight UFS. D-sideboard between your rounds, like we talked about. Take your time when you draw your cards. Make sure you're drawing the number of cards you should be. Don't draw too many. Don't draw too few. Jasco judges are super strict about that.
I highly recommend getting new sleeves, because newer sleeves tend to be much less sticky than old sleeves. And sleeves that have seen a couple tournaments and seen a lot of games. They can just accumulate grime, and just stuff sticks to them. It's just an inevitable fact of life, and that makes them stickier.
Mm-hmm. And you don't want to get into a situation, where you're drawing cards and two stick together. All of a sudden, you've got 7 cards in your hand. You should have 6. Make sure your sleeves are fresh, because you don't want to make a control check and check 3 cards or anything like that. Newer sleeves, I think, are definitely better. And also, the last thing you want during a tournament is maybe you do have a damaged sleeve. You call the judge over. The judge is like, you got to replace that sleeve. And either you don't have any, or they're all too damaged, and you got to run to the vendor hall during the tournament. It's a mess.
Or
Use
even
new
worse,
sleeves, fresh sleeves.
Even worse, having to play with an unsleeved deck, which I don't even think you actually do under the rules because of their printing issues.
Is not permitted at tournaments. You have to sleeve your deck.
Yeah, you actually need to have sleeves.
Luchador 768 reminds us, don't let the judge ask your opponent what the infraction should be. If something like that happens, you need to call another judge.
Yeah, you can appeal to the other judges. If something seems really fishy, they'll be patient and explain what's going on to you. And yeah.
And remember, the judges' rulings are final. We've had some issues in the past where judges have listened to additional arguments, have flip-flopped, then there's going to be a similar infraction later in the round, and they rule the opposite way, and everybody's angry for a whole year. Let's just not go that direction. If you're not happy with it, appeal to the head judge. And then, you don't discuss it anymore until the judge gets there. We want to try to run a professional shift. Our judges are not professionals, so just don't cheat. That'd be the easiest thing to do.
I mean, mistakes happen. We don't need to attach value judgments to them beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Just when you call a judge, put your hand up in the air, yell "judge," hold your hand up till someone comes over. Explain the situation. The judge will make a ruling. If you don't like it, you can appeal. That's always the option.
Yeah, take a deep breath and relax. Getting upset doesn't help anyone get through anything faster.
Having judged several events, I can tell you that when you get called over and you have to make a ruling, no matter how well you know the rules, it's extremely stressful. Especially if an infraction has taken place, because it's stressful. So stay calm. Let the judges stay calm. Everybody stays calm. We get on with our lives. Make sure when you're playing that you don't draw cards or make control checks before response windows have closed. Those can make odd
Give your opponent a
states,
chance to do something before you just go ahead and pretend they didn't.
because that can create an irreversible game state that it turns into a giant mess. And remember, in UFS, maintaining a legal game state is the responsibility of both players. So I'm going to use an example of a game me and Kevin played. Kevin resolved to throw it down, then played a Shoryudan. I chose not to block, and then Kevin played his next card. So in that situation, Kevin didn't draw the card he was supposed to, and we called the judge, and we both actually had an infraction against us. It's both players' responsibility to make sure that the game state is legal.
Yeah. Remember when your attacks have the safe keyword. That's a relevant one.
That is a new keyword, yes. Be aware of safe, because you don't have, if it's safe, your opponent can't even play a reversal. It just doesn't happen. And then you've got a messed up game state where you've played a reversal, you've made a control check, and it could just not be good. Oh, Piglet reminds us that if you are a spectator and you see an infraction or a not legal game state, you have to stop the tournament and call a judge. You have to stop the round.
Yeah, just ask the players, "Hey guys, I think I see something wrong. Can you hold on a second and pull a judge over?"
Because we don't. One thing that I know can make people really salty is after the round realizing either they made a math error or something that happened that shouldn't have, and you can't go back in time and fix it. And most of the time, it's not even your opponent's fault. I mean, UFS is complicated, and math errors happen all the time. I had a nightmare game the other day with Pharaoh Man versus Time Man, and there was pluses to checks and minuses to checks, and
people yelling about your dreams being dreams around you.
Oh my gosh, it was awful.
Did you divide by 0 at some point during that match?
Oh, with the new UFS rules, another thing to remember about playing tight UFS: keep track of who goes first. During the end of round procedures, the player who went second in the last game does get the last turn. And I don't know yet how the judges are going to rule if nobody remembers who went first. I recommend just writing it down.
Yeah, it's not hard to just write down over the life. Like if you keep life totals on a score on a note on a piece of paper, which is very advisable because you can actually record what happens in the game, and if there's ever a discrepancy, you can point at exactly what happened and have this easy memory instead of using dice, for example, and just write down over whoever's name, say roll, and that means they won the roll, they went first, and then you have this perfect record of what's happening and why and how.
That's an important thing to bring for the event itself, in addition to your decks and everything. Bring a notepad and a pen to keep track of everything. And then still, even when you're using that, bring the dice for keeping track of things like speed bonuses, damage bonuses, number of activations on things like improved design. Like, there's lots of things that you can use to help you keep track of with dice.
Yeah, and I've seen a few people actually just use their notepad to keep track of speed and damage. They just have a big notepad and just write down whenever there's a Navos going on, and they keep a tick mark of every time their opponent passes and enhance, and they write down every time the speed bonuses happen or speed reduction happens, because those numbers. I mean, pulling out a d20 and spinning it around for 5 seconds every time your opponent passes enhance. That's a great way to get a draw, and we don't want that.
Yeah, draws don't help anybody. We don't want people going 3-0-3 and having to fight the 4-2 and the special surprise round when everybody wants to go get supper.
Undefeated.
Other ethics things that I didn't add to our list tonight, but I think are important to remember. UFS is complicated. You want to make sure you give your opponent the best chance, to have a fair sporting game of UFS. Stay off your phone during the round. It's like going to the movies. It's extremely rude. It's distracting. Don't slow play. I know that it's a problem with some people in the community. And if you feel that your opponent is deliberately slow rolling you, call a judge. They'll sit there and they'll tell you, hey, you got to pick up the pace.
And judges can grant time extensions.
Yeah, especially if you have to wait a while for a judge, or the judges take a long time to make a ruling because it's complicated. Ask for an extension. I know when I call for a judge, I write down the time on the timer. So when the judge gets there, if it's more than a couple minutes, I'm going to say, hey, I need a 3-minute extension. UFS takes a long time. Let's see. Nick Brown reminds us, super important thing with ethics, don't touch people's cards without asking first. That definitely goes back to the personal bubble. I always sometimes feel awkward. Someone just reaches across and just starts manhandling my cards. Some people are super uptight about how their cards are handled. Like I have a customer specifically who, like when I pack his orders, have to have every single card in his own sleeve. So that guy, you're not going to want to pick up and manhandle his deck and shuffle it and bend his cards and whatnot.
Yeah, just ask. People are always happy. It's uncomfortable and invasive for some people when you reach across the table and just scoop up their discard pile. It's public information, but it's a lot better for everybody if you just say, "Hey, could I see your discard pile?"
Mm-hmm. Oh, shuffling. Pig was making fun of Kevin, but shuffling something we should talk about as well.
It is important. Don't take 20 minutes to do it, though, Kevin Broberg.
But at the same time, make sure the decks are sufficiently randomized. I mean, if you don't properly shuffle your deck throughout the day, funny things can happen. You can check rolling threes, or you can draw perfect hands, but you just always want to make sure you shuffle your deck. And if you don't think your opponent has sufficiently shuffled their deck, I'm going to be that guy and pile shuffle their deck out. Because not shuffled decks make for not fun UFS.
Yeah.
Or makes for UFS that's too fun for one person, not fun for the other.
Well, hey, I mean, when your deck is just composed, where it's 15 foundations, then all the attacks, then 15 more foundations, you're either gonna build 6 consecutively and then draw all your attacks and kill the crap out of them, or you're gonna build 0 because you drew all attacks on turn 2, and it's gonna be sucky for you. And then you're gonna flip all the attacks when you try to play those attacks. You're gonna have no attacks left in your deck, and it's just awful.
When you get up into the top cuts, should any of you be lucky enough to make it, take your time. You've got literally all the time in the world.
Well, con still closes at 4 p.m. on Sunday.
Right. Make sure you shuffle your opponent's deck. Take your time. Make sure you are playing the tightest UFS possible. Making sure you're closing response windows. Making sure that cards are drawn at the right times and not at the other times. So just play super tight, because a lot's on the line. I mean, cardboard is the biggest thing in UFS. People might get a little scummy in top 8.
It's the biggest stage in the game. It's World Championships. You should expect the highest level of play, and professionalism maybe is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, gotta bring that tie for when you're in top 8.
And look good, play good. Solid reasoning.
Anything else specifically, guys, do you think we need to hit on about stuff that happens during the tournaments, during your games that you're. Oh, actually, I'm so sorry. I just thought of a couple things. During deck check, please stay away from the judges during deck checks. It is private information. I mean, everybody knows me. Everybody knows AJ. We want to talk. We want to have a good time. But during that time, it's super serious because we're trying to check the decks as quickly as possible so you can get on to do what you want to do. We want to make sure we're accurate. We don't want people knowing what's in other people's decks. So just let us do our job. Don't loiter around the judges' table, after your match is over, because there's a lot of information that we're going to be putting out because we want to have good coverage on the forums, and we don't want information getting out that you may not necessarily need access to at the time. We're running a very lean team this year, so we're going to be extremely busy. Crap, I forgot what else I was thinking about. Anything else, guys?
I think we went through most of it I could think of for this.
One format we should talk about a little bit more in detail is the teams format. How the beginning of round procedures go to make sure that the team's championship goes smoothly. Because that, in my opinion, that's the funnest one of all.
Definitely.
You get to hang out with your friends all day, play UFS with friends you don't see very often. You get to ruthlessly harass Giggles all day whenever he makes a mistake. And then you might win a green card. So, remember, wear deodorant because you're sitting with your friends all day and sweating. Make sure at the beginning of the round, you guys are going to roll off to see who selects characters first. So you'll reveal all your characters. You're going to find some random way to decide who picks first. The first match, the first set of pairings, and then the second set of pairings will be decided by the other team, and then the final set of pairings sorts itself out, obviously.
Unless you're really bad at math.
So make sure you do that. During the team's rounds, you're not allowed to communicate advice or anything like that with your teammates.
Yeah, you are effectively a spectator for the other games. You cannot tell them anything what's going on, if they're missing anything, if they are, if they're just like forgetting on what some ability does. You cannot tell them. If you see something wrong, like we mentioned earlier, if you're a spectator for a normal match, you can tell them, "Hey guys, I don't think something's right. Let me get a judge over here," and then the judge can say, "Oh yeah, so you should have drawn a card or something," and then that can happen. But you can't give them any strategic advice whatsoever.
Yeah, there's no dominant head in this format that can control decisions.
When you're making your pairings, make sure I recommend stepping away from the table. Talk about your deck's perceived strengths and weaknesses against the other players, because you want to make the pairings that's going to help you successfully win 2 games out of 3. And I know if you're playing in teams, if the other 2 matches finish and the matches decide one way or the other, I personally pick up my cards and say, okay, let's wait for the next match to start. Those extra games of UFS that don't matter too much can take a lot of energy out of you throughout the day.
Especially if you're playing one of those long control decks like Angels,
Ugh.
Void,
or Pharaoh, or Dimitri these days.
Yeah. Speaking of Dimitri, anyone figure out how to win with him yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So, that I think that finishes off everything when you talk about actually playing UFS. Next item up for discussion is the vendor hall. That's my favorite part of the convention, is going to the vendor hall. Remember, stay in your budget.
Unless you make a new budget by selling stuff.
Fair enough. I know a lot of people prefer to window shop throughout the convention, decide the things they really like, and then go on Sunday. On Sunday, you've got a pretty good idea of how much money you have left, how much money you can spend, and sometimes the vendors are running a special. But please don't haggle with them. I've talked to vendors, they hate that. The booths...
It's not a flea market. They're professionals.
And
they know what they're selling things for.
the to travel to Gen Con, to buy the booth, to pay for the hotel room, that costs the vendors thousands and thousands of dollars. It's extremely expensive for them. So they want to make as much money as possible. I mean, that's their livelihood. Don't try to haggle with the vendors. If you've got time during the convention, you don't have stuff to do. I know Jasco Games is always looking for even temporary volunteers. You probably won't get the swag hookup, but growing the game I think is swag enough for me. Taking people over, showing them the game, trying to get more people playing UFS. More people who buy UFS could mean bigger licenses, larger print runs, and other opportunities for Jasco Games. So they've got 40,000 people walking by their booth over the weekend. So that's a ton of people who could be playing UFS that aren't.
And if nothing else, you can pick up demo for Top Gun or Universal Tactics, I think, are the additional games on display.
Yep.
So
Top Gun's a lot of fun. I'll think to that from experience already.
But remember, stay in your budget. And so at the end of, that pretty much wraps up the survival guide, unless you guys can think of anything else. Going once, twice. All right, so remember, stay in your budget, have fun, and plan. And that wraps up the survival guide. Some announcements to put a bookend on the show for tonight. Gen Con's coming up next week. I know the Rochester crew is going to be hanging out Wednesday night at Kilroy's Bar, right next to the Homewood Suites. They've got $8 32-ounce Long Islands, so I'm going to be pretty schmacked. They've got good food, too. Hanging out on the patio is a great time. And then throughout the convention, I know that Saturday night, our venue is changing, I think, for the family dinner. I think we're going to be at Bacon, Legs, and something else for CandyCon. We'll find out what exactly that's supposed to be.
Do we need a golden ticket to enter?
Shut up, Hughes.
Just saying.
You can give me your golden tickets to get in.
It's pretty convenient that we're getting a card called the Golden Ticket and then going to something called CandyCon.
Other events coming up. The UK circuit stop number 2 is coming up at Ace Comics and Games in Colchester.
Oh, sweet.
The 29th of August in St. Louis is their PTC at the Dizzy Dugout in Collinsville. I'm hoping to try to get out there. Depends on what my vacation situation looks like. Let's see. The Michigan PTC comes up on September 26th at Eternal Games in Warren, Michigan. They always put on a good time with Whirly Ball and all those great things.
And it's a new venue this year, so go check it out. Say hi to everybody.
Couple new events on the announcements this week. The Poughkeepsie PTC has been announced.
Yay!
October 24th to 26th at the Dragon's Den in Poughkeepsie, New York. We've been out to that venue. They got a lot of space at the Dragon's Den. Unfortunately, Poughkeepsie's kind of a hassle to fly into. The best way to do it is to fly into the city and take a train. And there's lots of people who live around who should be able to help you get around the town. And
which one's Dragon's Den?
Dragon's Den is the one up on Route 9.
I don't know what that
in the
means.
little mall thingy.
The one in the strip mall. The
right,
one
yeah.
that's like 5 minutes away from where I stay. I guess you've never been there, so.
No, I stayed with your aunt for one night.
Okay.
Yeah, the den is where we had the Empire Circuit Draft.
Okay.
And
yeah, that place is huge.
Yeah, it's a cool place. They got lots of video games and
there's a great tea. It's not like a tea restaurant.
It's a tea room.
Tea shop. Tea room. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Like 2 doors down.
We're apparently supposed to create some hype and hate on and smack talk some other play groups.
Maybe we'll do some of that at the end. The Rochester 2K is coming up November 7th and 8th at Grease Canal Park in Rochester. That's going to be a great time. We're going to have beer and free beer.
Free beer and football and UFS and cash prizes.
Woohoo! No cash prizes.
Credit prizes.
Credit prizes. But the prizes are going to be really, really good. I'm hoping everybody can make it up for it. The UFS Manor has lots of space for people to sleep as always. I'm sure the UFS Cave at Hughes's has plenty of room.
Yep, I'm probably taking in all of Poughkeepsie.
Let's see. Nick Brown asks, what kind of beer do we like? Hughes, you don't drink beer. Kevin, what's your favorite beer?
Dude, I'm still a beer neophyte. I don't know what I like. I don't know, beer.
I know I like to drink me some Genesee River water from the Genesee Brewery.
I like anything that has a good body to it, I think. It's one attribute that I've consistently enjoyed.
So it's going to be a good time. I hope everybody can make it out. There's going to be a lot of good UFS, and a good time will be had by all. Matt, you had an announcement before we close it up for tonight, right?
Oh yes. Starting after the show, once I post it, I want to get more stores involved in UFS, and I want players to be able to actually buy product from their local stores. So anyone who contacts me through the forums and helps me get product into a new UFS store, so a store that hasn't been carrying UFS or hasn't carried it in a long time at least, once they get set up and start buying product from me, I will send you a White Templar out of my personal collection.
That's a $20 value, absolutely free.
Yep. Just for helping me out to get these stores motivated to buy products from you.
And so, Pig wants some trash talk. I can tell you some things I'm expecting from my team this year. I want Giggles to beat Garrett Brett with Snake Man, and I also want him to beat Garrett's Butler with Snake Man. Despite all the 400 cards of tech that they're going to put in their deck just to beat Snake Man. And then they'll lose to everybody else. I want the Rochester team of Matt, Jesse, and Giggles to bring green card back for us this time. I think back-to-back green cards will be really good, especially so I can get all my relatives over here from Ireland.
There's no Kim for me to punt to this time. Don't worry.
I want Rochester to win Turbo again. I want Giggles to win Turbo again. So he can lock up another one of those keys so he's got less competition for the Turbo car.
You see, when I make the deck this time, I get to run it, not him. He gets to make his own deck for Turbo.
So we're just going to play a Felicia starter and crush you, right?
Probably. This is the sad truth.
And then as far as singles goes, I'd be happy to see it go to any of my guys here in Rochester. And if anybody comes up from Poughkeepsie, I'd be happy to see one of them win it. I know Piglet is in the running to get himself on his own card with his beautiful face. Shout outs to Mark Wisniewski. I'd like to see him get on cardboard this year.
Oh, slam!
Slap!
I would like to see him win, but he has to make all of his entire ability based on playing slams and making them better. He has no other choice.
He is a slam.
Yes, he also has the slam keyword on him.
One thing I don't want to see at Gen Con this year is I don't want to see Garrett Pratt win any more cardboard. He's got too much.
Just pair me against him.
I mean, he came pretty close to the gate at Nationals, and we kept him away with Giggles.
Like
we don't want that to happen again.
Beat me. He can't. So don't worry.
He can't beat Lunar Catapult or Piercing Howl, and you don't have either of those anymore, dude.
I don't think he can beat Rain Flush. I don't think he can beat Murakumo.
Who do you guys think are the players to beat at Gen Con this year?
Unfortunately, Kevin Broberg.
Really?
That guy's a scrub. He's a has-been.
I don't even I know what I'm playing, but only because I'm committing to playing one of two characters, and I don't know which of the 7 builds of those two characters I'm going to play. It's probably just going to be like the hot garbage 4x self-destruct builds, just because I can't decide to play anything else.
I'm really interested to see A, is Jeremy going to play his character, and B, what he's come up with for it. I think
it's obviously going to be Trinity Geyser, obviously, right, Sean?
Oh, it's so good.
I think I got a hint.
Pick it up, do it again.
I think I got a hint of what he's going to be playing with it. It'll be interesting to see if I'm right. It seems pretty cool.
All the reversals.
No.
Cool things are good. Do you guys see that King is gonna accomplish something finally?
No.
Oh.
Jada
Dude,
is.
she plays ever hopeful. Like that's all you need. Just put ever hopeful and play. Your opponent's like, well, I lose, and then she kicks your face in.
I think Garrett and Devin are a threat as always. Anybody from that Calgary group is a threat. I think Atlanta's a threat depending on who shows up. Especially if King Salty's been letting this salt out just to build up his meter.
Is Drew Maffei coming, or is he having another kid?
He's always having babies at Gen Con. Oh,
Ooh.
Piglet thinks that Giggles, Birch, Garrett, Devin, and William Bryant are the people to beat. Was William Bryant the guy who almost won last year at Nationals? With
Yes.
He was the person piloting Mai to second place at Nationals.
That match was totally winnable for him, too. I bet you he's become a lot better since the last time we saw him play. So he might seal it.
I think that there's an interesting storyline there because he was actually 4-3 after Swiss, if I remember correctly. It was not a terribly impressive record, but then he had a great run during Top Cut, eliminating Garrett, Devin, Ryan Field, and is there another round still? No, it was top 16, so 4 rounds. Yeah. I mean, knocking out Garrett and Devin is an accomplishment.
Let's see. We've been told Ryan Field is a threat. Drew Maffei is playing.
I don't know. Bomb Man's not that good
right.
anymore.
La Bamba is still legit.
Is he though? Is he?
I
I
don't know,
guess
I'm really
we'll find
excited to
out
see what
in 2
everyone brings.
weeks.
I'm really excited. I just hope that it's not just like ever hopeful the format because that card is kind of not fun when it's just like kicking your face in.
Yeah.
It's a really good card. Little Grey War action.
Yeah, the way it was meant to be.
Speaking of cards to watch out for, I think a card that people really need to watch out for is S-Class Hunter.
Yeah.
Its response is pretty good. I lost 6
Which
fatality
response?
the other day. The one where I use an ability on a committed foundation.
You take 2, yeah.
Yeah, and when you're
Careful
playing
using your
Record.
kitty meow meows.
Feel the burn.
meow meow.
Note that there's a ruling on that card that is a little bit counterintuitive to me. All of BB Hood's cards that care about an ability that grants a speed bonus or a damage bonus only apply when it actually has like the plus sign on it. A return to print it or anything like that, or set 2 equals, those don't get affected, which actually makes sense because if BB Hood gave the change -1 when it was returning to print it, that'd be kind of funny.
Alrighty, anything else for us to cover tonight, guys?
Oh, I think we're good.
All
Other
right,
than,
everybody.
I'm gonna crush everyone. That's all.
We'll
Show
see.
me your moves.
Show me your moves. All right, that's it for tonight. We're going to be off next week, having fun at Gen Con. We may do a little thing from the patio if we're feeling super ambitious and not drunk enough, or if we're extra drunk and we just
I'll do it drunk.
do something from the patio. And we hope to see everybody there and have a good 2 weeks. We'll see you when we get back.
I just don't know if Twitch's app can broadcast from a cell phone.
No, it can't.
Curses.
Well, what I will be doing, I'll have my camera on me, and I'll be recording stuff for both Top Deck Heroes and Total Justice Gaming.
Awesome.
There is no Total Justice this week, right?
Nope, no Total Justice tomorrow. Tomorrow is everyone should sit there and playtest. Because that's what we're going to be doing.
Piglet says we're going to smoke some cigars on the patio. We should even do a couple Southern Fried interviews on the patio.
Whoa.
Whoa!
Southern Fried interviews with the first ever Southern Fried interview with 15 people in it.
Alrighty, guys. Have a good night. We'll see you at Gen Con.